I stood in that bridal suit doorway, my hand trembling as I held my phone, recording every venomous word that came out of my daughter-in-law's mouth. In my other hand was a check for $20 million, half of everything I'd spent 40 years building. She called me the old wallet. She laughed about putting me in a home, and in that moment, I realized that the biggest mistake of my life wasn't the money I'd almost given away. It was almost giving it to someone who saw me as nothing more than a means to an end. Before I begin my story, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. I just want to know I'm not alone in this. And if you feel moved by what you hear, consider subscribing. It helps more people become aware of the reality of elder abuse. Now let me tell you what really happened. My name is Margaret Eleanor Thornton, and I've spent the last 43 years of my life building something from nothing. When my husband died in a construction accident, I was 25 years old with a 3-year-old son and $17 in my checking account. No college degree, no family money, just a furious determination that my boy would never go hungry the way I did as a child. I started cleaning houses. Then I started managing rental properties for other people. Then I bought my first property, a run-down duplex that everyone said was a waste of money. I fixed it up myself, learning plumbing and carpentry from library books and helpful strangers at the hardware store. I rented it out. I saved every penny. That was 43 years ago. Today, I own Thornton Properties, a real estate empire worth over $60 million. I have commercial buildings, apartment complexes, and residential developments across 3 states. I did it all while raising my son Daniel as a single mother, while putting him through the best schools, while making sure he had every opportunity I never had. Daniel grew up kind and gentle, maybe too gentle. He became a high school history teacher, which made him happy even if it didn't make him rich. I was proud of him for following his heart instead of chasing money. God knows he'd seen me chase it long enough. When he turned 35 and still hadn't settled down, I started to worry. Not because I needed grandchildren, I already had Emma, my beautiful granddaughter from my late daughter Caroline, who'd passed from cancer 5 years ago. Emma lived with me now, free, a bright 16-year-old with her mother's eyes and her grandmother's stubborn streak. But I worried that Daniel was lonely, that he'd spent so much of his life taking care of me and his sister, and then his niece, that he'd forgotten to build something for himself. Then, 2 years ago, he met Vanessa Hart at a teacher's conference. She was giving a presentation on social media in the classroom, though I later learned her real expertise was as an Instagram influencer with 300,000 followers. She was beautiful, long blonde hair, perfect smile, the kind of woman who looked like she stepped out of a magazine. Daniel fell hard and fast. I'll be honest, I had my doubts from the beginning. Vanessa was 30 years old to Daniel's 38, and there was something about the way her eyes would light up when I mentioned my business that made me uncomfortable. But Daniel was happy, genuinely happy for the first time in years, and I convinced myself I was just being an overprotective mother. "Mom, I love her," Daniel told me 6 months into their relationship. We were having dinner at my house, just the 2 of us. Emma was upstairs doing homework. "I know she's different from what you expected, but she makes me feel alive." "If you're happy, sweetheart, then I'm happy," I said, and I meant it. I wanted to mean it anyway. They got engaged after a year. Vanessa wanted a big wedding, 200 guests at the Rosewood Estate, the most expensive venue in the city. The budget kept climbing: $50,000, $70,000, $100,000. Daniel's teacher salary couldn't cover it, and Vanessa's influencer income was apparently less impressive than her follower count suggested. "Mom, I hate to ask," Daniel said one evening, looking miserable, "but could you help with the wedding costs? I know it's a lot, but Vanessa's parents can't contribute much and—" "Of course," I interrupted. "Whatever you need, honey. This is your special day." I wrote a check for $120,000 to cover the entire wedding. Daniel nearly cried with relief. Vanessa kissed my cheek and called me the most generous mother-in-law in the world. But that wasn't the real gift I had planned. For months, I'd been working with my financial advisor on something bigger, something that would set Daniel and Vanessa up for life. I was 68 years old, in good health, but realistic about mortality. I had more money than I could spend in 2 lifetimes. Emma would be taken care of through trusts I'd established years ago, with enough to pay for college, buy a house, start a business, whatever she wanted. But Daniel had always been so selfless, so content with his modest teacher's salary, living in his small apartment, driving a 10-year-old car. He'd never asked me for anything. He'd even tried to refuse money for the wedding until Vanessa convinced him otherwise. I wanted to do something extraordinary for my son. Something that would let him live comfortably, travel, maybe even retire early if he wanted. Something that would show him how proud I was of the man he'd become. So I made a decision. I would gift Daniel and Vanessa $20 million at their wedding. $20 million, half of my liquid assets. It would still leave me with plenty. I had another $20 million in accessible funds, plus all my properties and investments. But this $20 million would be theirs, free and clear. Enough to change their lives completely. My best friend Patty thought I was crazy. "Margaret, that's an insane amount of money to give all at once," she said when I told her my plan over coffee. Patty and I had been friends since we were both struggling single mothers in our 20s. She'd built a successful catering business and was the only person whose financial advice I actually trusted. "It's my money, Patty. I earned it and I want to spend it on my son. But $20 million? All at once? Why not set up a trust, give them an allowance, see how they handle? Because I trust Daniel," I said firmly. "He's responsible, he's smart, he'll use it wisely." "But what about Vanessa?" Patty asked quietly. "You barely know her, Margaret. She's going to be my daughter-in-law. Daniel loves her. That's enough for me." Patty shook her head but didn't argue further. "Just be careful. Money changes people. And that much money changes them fast." I didn't listen. I was too excited about the surprise, too confident in my decision. I'd built an empire through bold moves and calculated risks. This felt like both. The wedding was scheduled for a Saturday in late September. The weather was perfect, sunny but not too hot, with just enough breeze to keep everyone comfortable. The Rosewood estate looked like something out of a fairy tale, with white roses everywhere, string lights in the trees, and a string quartet playing as guests arrived. I wore an elegant navy dress and pearls, my silver hair styled in soft waves. Emma looked beautiful in her bridesmaid dress, though I could see she was uncomfortable with all the fuss. She'd never been close to Vanessa, but she was doing this for her Uncle Daniel. "Grandma, are you sure about this?" Emma whispered to me before the ceremony began. We were standing in the back of the garden, watching guests find their seats. "About what, sweetheart? About Vanessa? About all of this?" She gestured vaguely at the elaborate decorations, the ice sculpture, the champagne fountain. "Your uncle is happy," I said. "That's what matters." Emma bit her lip. "Okay. But if you ever need to talk about anything, I'm here." I squeezed her hand, touched by her concern. "Thank you, baby. But everything's going to be fine." The ceremony was beautiful. Daniel looked handsome in his tuxedo, tears streaming down his face as Vanessa walked down the aisle. Vanessa looked stunning in a designer gown that probably cost more than most people's cars. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promising to love and cherish each other through everything life brought. I cried. I couldn't help it. My baby boy, all grown up, starting his own family. After the ceremony, we moved to the reception hall. Dinner was served, a 5-course meal that Patty's catering company had prepared beautifully. Speeches began. Vanessa's maid of honor told funny stories about their college days. Daniel's best friend talked about what a good man he was. Then it was my turn. I was scheduled to give the mother of the groom speech after dinner, right before the first dance. I had my remarks prepared, typed up on cards in my purse. I also had the check, $20 million, made out to Daniel and Vanessa Thornton, signed and ready to present. But 15 minutes before I was supposed to speak, I realized I'd left my purse in the bridal suite. The check was in there, and I couldn't very well give my speech without it. "I'll be right back," I told Patty, who was sitting next to me. I forgot something. I made my way through the reception hall, past dancing guests and laughing children, toward the east wing where the bridal suite was located. The door was closed but not locked. I could hear voices inside, female voices laughing. I was about to knock when I heard my name. "Margaret's probably already writing the check right now," Vanessa's voice said, followed by laughter. "Did you see how desperate she was to pay for everything? The old wallet can't wait to open up for us." I froze, my hand on the doorknob. My heart started pounding in my chest. I stood there in the hallway, my hand still on the doorknob, trying to process what I'd just heard. The old wallet. She'd called me the old wallet. I should have walked away. I should have knocked and pretended I hadn't heard anything. But something kept me frozen in place, and Vanessa kept talking. "I mean, $120,000 for the wedding was just the appetizer." Vanessa continued. Her voice had a sharp edge to it that I'd never heard before. Nothing like the sweet, soft tone she used around Daniel and me. Daniel says she's worth at least 60 million. Can you imagine? And she lives in that boring old house like she's middle class? So what's the plan? Another woman's voice asked. I recognized it as Brianna, Vanessa's maid of honor. Are you going to convince Daniel to ask for more? Vanessa laughed, a cold sound that made my blood run cold. I don't have to convince Daniel of anything. He's so desperate to make me happy. He'll do whatever I suggest. Plus, he feels guilty about his mom having money while he's teaching for $45,000 a year. It's actually perfect. But doesn't Margaret seem kind of sharp? A third voice, one of the other bridesmaids. Like she didn't build a real estate empire by being stupid. Please, Vanessa scoffed. She's 68 years old and lonely. She's so desperate for Daniel to be happy that she'd give us anything. I've been playing the perfect daughter-in-law for 2 years. It's exhausting, honestly. All the Sunday dinners, listening to her boring stories about buying her first property, pretending to care about her charity work. But it's paying off. How much do you think you can get? Brianna asked. There was a pause. I pressed my ear closer to the door, my hand shaking. I'm thinking at least 10 million up front, Vanessa said. Maybe more. Daniel mentioned something about his mom wanting to give us a significant wedding gift. I'm betting it's big. And then once we have access to the family finances, we can start working on the rest. The rest? The inheritance, obviously. Margaret's not going to live forever. And honestly, the sooner she's in a nice nursing home somewhere, the sooner we can stop pretending. Daniel's too soft to ever suggest it, but I can convince him it's for her own safety. She's getting older, living alone in that big house except for the granddaughter. One fall, one little accident, and boom, Daniel will agree she needs professional care. My vision blurred with tears. I fumbled in my pocket for my phone, my fingers clumsy with shock and rage. I opened the recording app, something Emma had taught me how to use months ago when I needed to record a meeting with a difficult tenant. I pressed record and held the phone near the door. You're diabolical, Brianna said, but she was laughing. Does Daniel have any idea? God, no. Daniel thinks I'm some kind of saint. He has no idea that I was basically broke when we met. The Instagram influencer thing, dead end. I was about to have to move back in with my parents when I met him at that conference. A teacher with a rich mommy. It was like winning the lottery. Do you even love him? The third bridesmaid asked. There was another pause, longer this time. I held my breath. I love what he can give me, Vanessa said finally. He's nice enough, I guess. Not exactly exciting, but manageable. And he worships me, which makes everything easier. The sex is mediocre, but I can live with that for $60 million. The women erupted in laughter. I felt sick to my stomach. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be the woman my son had married just an hour ago. What about the granddaughter? Brianna asked. Emma, right? She seems like she might be a problem. That kid hates me, Vanessa said. She sees right through me. But she's just a teenager. Who's going to listen to her? Plus, she'll be off to college in 2 years anyway. Margaret's already set up trusts for her, so she's taken care of. She's not competition for the real money. You've really thought this through, the third bridesmaid said, sounding impressed. Of course I have. I've been planning this since our third date, when Daniel mentioned his mom owned half the commercial real estate downtown. I researched everything, Thornton Properties, Margaret's net worth, her portfolio. I even looked into whether Daniel had any other family members who might contest a will. It's just him and Emma now, and Emma's not a blood threat to my claim. You should write a book, Brianna joked. How to Marry Rich, A Gold Digger's Guide. They all laughed again. I stopped the recording, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone. I'd heard enough. More than enough. I stood there in that hallway for a long moment, trying to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to burst through that door and confront her right then. Wanted to play the recording for everyone, expose her in front of all her friends, ruin her perfect wedding day the way she was planning to ruin my son's life. But another part of me, the part that had spent 43 years building a business empire, knew that emotions made for bad decisions. I needed to think. I needed a plan. I also needed to protect Daniel. Because as much as I wanted to destroy Vanessa, I knew that confronting her now would destroy my son too. He'd just married this woman. He loved her. Finding out the truth in the middle of their wedding reception would devastate him. I looked down at my phone, at the recording app still open. 8 minutes and 37 seconds. I had everything I needed to prove what Vanessa really was. But I needed to figure out the right way to use it. I took a deep breath, smoothed down my dress, and walked back to the reception hall. My purse was still in the bridal suite, but I didn't need it anymore. I didn't need the check. Because I wasn't giving Vanessa Hart a single penny. Patty looked up as I returned to our table. Did you find it? Find what? Your purse. You said you forgot something? Oh, no, I changed my mind. I don't need it. Patty studied my face. Margaret, what's wrong? You look pale. Nothing. I'm fine. I picked up my champagne glass and drained it in one swallow. My hands were still shaking. On the dance floor, Daniel and Vanessa were laughing with some of their friends. Daniel looked so happy, so carefree. He had his arm around his new wife's waist, pulling her close. Vanessa was smiling that perfect smile, the one I'd thought was genuine for 2 years. The old wallet. That's all I was to her. The DJ's voice came over the speaker system. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to hear from the mother of the groom, Margaret Thornton. Everyone applauded. Daniel looked over at me, his face glowing with happiness. He gave me a thumbs up. I stood slowly, my legs feeling like they might give out. I walked to the front of the room where a microphone was set up. 200 faces looked at me expectantly. Vanessa stood next to Daniel, her arm linked through his, that perfect smile still plastered on her face. I thought about the check in my purse. $20 million, half my liquid assets. I'd been so excited to give it to them, free, so sure it was the right thing to do. Thank you all for being here, I began, my voice surprisingly steady. Today has been beautiful. Seeing my son so happy means everything to me. Daniel beamed. Vanessa squeezed his arm. I had a speech prepared. I continued. I was going to talk about watching Daniel grow up, about how proud I am of the man he's become. I was going to welcome Vanessa into our family and tell her how grateful I am that she makes my son so happy. I paused, looking directly at Vanessa. Her smile didn't waver, but something flickered in her eyes. Uncertainty, maybe, or was I imagining it? I was also going to give you both a very generous wedding gift, I said. Something that would change your lives. Set you up for the future. Now I had everyone's attention. The room had gone completely silent. Daniel looked confused but hopeful. Vanessa's smile had frozen on her face. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the check. I'd grabbed it from my purse earlier, before I'd overheard the conversation. $20 million, made out to Daniel and Vanessa Thornton. I held it up so everyone could see it. This check is for $20 million, I said clearly. The room erupted. People gasped. Someone dropped a glass. Daniel's mouth fell open in shock. Vanessa's eyes went huge, her perfect composure finally cracking. Mom, Daniel whispered, loud enough for the microphone to pick up. You can't. That's too much. It was going to be my gift to you both, I said. I was looking at the check now, not at the crowd. $20 million to start your life together. Because I love my son, and I want him to have everything he deserves. I could feel Vanessa staring at me, probably mentally calculating what she could buy with $20 million. Probably thinking about how right she'd been, how easy this was going to be. But something happened tonight, I continued. Something that made me realize I need to reconsider my plans. The room went silent again. Daniel looked terrified now. Vanessa's smile had completely disappeared. I looked up, meeting Vanessa's eyes directly. I need to think more carefully about who deserves my generosity, I said, and who sees it as nothing more than an opportunity. And then, before I could change my mind, before I could let my love for Daniel stop me from doing what needed to be done, I took that check, that $20 million check, and tore it in half. The sound of ripping paper was deafening in the silent room. I tore it again, and again, and again until it was nothing but confetti in my hands. I'm sorry, Daniel, I said, my voice breaking. But I can't do this. Not like this. Not yet. I dropped the pieces of the check on the floor and walked out of the reception hall. Behind me, chaos erupted. I made it to my car before the tears came. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. Behind me, I could hear shouting from the reception hall, muffled voices, confusion. Probably Daniel trying to figure out what had just happened. I just destroyed my son's wedding reception. I'd humiliated him in front of 200 people. I'd torn up $20 million like it was a grocery store receipt. But what else could I have done? My phone started ringing before I even got out of the parking lot. Daniel's name flashed on the screen. I couldn't answer it. Not yet. Not when I was crying so hard I could barely see the road. It rang again and again. Then Patty's name appeared. Then Daniel again. I drove home on autopilot, my mind replaying Vanessa's words over and over. The old wallet. The sooner she's in a nursing home, the sex is mediocre. But I can live with that for $60 million. How could I have been so blind? When I pulled into my driveway, Emma was sitting on the front porch steps. She'd left the reception early. She must have gotten a ride with someone. She stood up as I got out of the car, her bridesmaid dress wrinkled, her makeup smudged. "Grandma," she said, running toward me. "What happened?" "Everyone's saying you tore up a check for $20 million. I opened my arms and she fell into them, this beautiful girl who'd lost her mother too young, who was too wise for her 16 years. I said into her hair. I had to. Why? What did Vanessa do? We went inside. I made tea, the ritual of boiling water, finding cups. Steeping the bags gave me something to do with my shaking hands. Emma sat at the kitchen table, still in her dress, watching me with worried eyes. "Tell me," she said quietly. So I did. I told her everything I'd overheard. I played her the recording, watching her face go from shock to disgust to fury. "That bitch," Emma said, and I was too upset to correct her language. I knew something was wrong with her. I tried to tell Uncle Daniel, but he just said I was being difficult. "He loves her," I said. "Or he thinks he does." "He loves who he thinks she is," Emma corrected. "Grandma, you have to show him this recording. Tonight." "I can't." I wrapped my hands around my teacup, trying to stop them from shaking. "Not tonight. He just got married. Finding this out now would destroy him. And letting him stay married to a gold digger won't." She had a point. But I kept thinking about Daniel's face when I'd torn up that check. The confusion, the hurt, the embarrassment. I'd already ruined his wedding day. How much more could I take from him in one night? My phone rang again, Daniel, for probably the 20th time. "You have to answer eventually," Emma said. I knew she was right. I picked up the phone. "Mom?" Daniel's voice was tight, controlled. He was using his teacher voice, the one he used when he was trying very hard not to lose his temper. "Where are you?" "I'm home." "What the hell was that? What were you thinking, Mom? Do you have any idea what you just did?" I closed my eyes. "Daniel? $20 million, Mom. You told everyone you were giving us $20 million, and then you tore it up in front of our entire wedding. Our friends, our families, everyone we know just watched you humiliate us. I can explain." "Explain what?" "That you decided to punish me." "Punish Vanessa? For what, Mom? What did we do to deserve that?" My throat tightened. "Is Vanessa there with you?" "Of course she's here. She's my wife. We just got married. Or did you forget that while you were staging your little dramatic scene? I need to talk to you alone." "No. Whatever you have to say, you can say it in front of both of us. We're married now. We're a unit." I could hear Vanessa in the background, her voice sugary sweet. "Daniel, maybe we should give your mother some space. She's obviously upset about something. She just humiliated us in front of everyone we know." Daniel said, "Not to me. She doesn't get space. She gets to explain herself." "Daniel, please," I said. "Come over tomorrow. Just you. I promise I'll explain everything. Tomorrow." "Mom, you just destroyed our wedding reception. The DJ stopped playing. Half the guests left. Vanessa's parents are mortified. My friends think you've lost your mind. And you want me to wait until tomorrow." "Yes." My voice came out firmer than I felt. "Come tomorrow morning. 10 o'clock. Just you. I'm not leaving Vanessa the morning after our wedding to deal with your drama." "Then bring her?" I said, even though the thought of facing Vanessa made me feel sick. "But please, Daniel. Give me a chance to explain." There was a long pause. I could hear whispered conversation, Vanessa's voice soft and soothing, probably playing the understanding wife. "Fine," Daniel said finally. "We'll be there at 10. But this better be good, Mom. Because right now I'm not sure I can forgive you for this." He hung up without saying goodbye. I set the phone down on the table. My hands were still shaking. Emma reached across and squeezed them. "You did the right thing," she said. "You can't let her get away with this. I just ruined my son's wedding." "No. She ruined it the moment she decided to marry him for money. You just stopped her from stealing everything you've built." I wanted to believe her. But all I could think about was Daniel's voice, the hurt and anger in it. My son, who never raised his voice, who was always so gentle and understanding. I'd pushed him too far. My phone buzzed with a text. "Patty, are you okay? What happened?" "Call me." I should have called her. But I was too exhausted, too emotionally drained. Instead, I sent back a quick text. "I'm fine. We'll explain tomorrow." Another text came through. This one from a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Thornton, this is Brianna, Vanessa's maid of honor." I don't know what's going on, but Vanessa is really upset. Whatever happened between you two? I hope you can work it out. She really loves Daniel. I stared at that message for a long time. Brianna, one of the women who'd been laughing in the bridal suite about putting me in a nursing home. One of Vanessa's accomplices in this whole scheme. I deleted the message without responding. Emma and I sat in silence for a while. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it just felt like the end of something. Grandma, Emma said quietly. Can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. Were you really going to give them $20 million? Why so much? I thought about how to explain it. Because I wanted to give Daniel the security I never had when I was young. I wanted him to never have to worry about money, to be able to do whatever made him happy. I thought it would be my legacy, providing for my family. But you already provided for him, Emma said. You raised him, you put him through school, you gave him a good life. I wanted to give him more. Maybe that's the problem, Emma said softly. Maybe sometimes more is just more, not better. She was 16 years old, and she was wiser than I'd been in that moment. That night, I barely slept. I kept rehearsing what I would say to Daniel in the morning, how I would explain what I'd heard. Would he believe me? Would he think I was making it up because I didn't approve of his marriage? I had the recording, of course. But using it felt like a betrayal, like I was spying on private conversations. Even though those private conversations were about manipulating and using my son. At 3 a.m, I got up and went to my office. I pulled out all my financial documents, my estate plans, everything I'd prepared for the wedding gift. I looked at the trust documents I'd had drawn up, the accounts I'd opened in Daniel and Vanessa's names. I'd been so sure this was the right thing to do. So confident that my generosity would make my son happy. Instead, it had nearly made him the victim of a con artist. I thought about what Vanessa had said. She's so desperate for Daniel to be happy that she'd give us anything. She was right. I had been desperate. Desperate to prove I was a good mother, despite spending so much of Daniel's childhood building my business. Desperate to make up for all the time I'd spent working instead of with him. Desperate to show my love the only way I knew how, with money. And Vanessa had seen that desperation and used it against me. At 5 a.m, Emma found me still in my office, surrounded by papers. You need to sleep, she said gently. I can't. She came and sat next to me, resting her head on my shoulder. It's going to be okay, Grandma. Uncle Daniel will understand once you show him the recording. What if he doesn't? What if he thinks I'm trying to sabotage his marriage? Then he's an idiot, Emma said bluntly. But he's not. He's a good person. He'll see the truth. I hope she was right. At 9:30, I was dressed and waiting in the living room. I'd put on a simple blouse and slacks. Tried to cover the dark circles under my eyes with makeup. Emma had offered to stay for moral support, but I'd sent her to her friend's house. This was between me and Daniel. And Vanessa, apparently. Since Daniel had made it clear they were a unit now. At exactly 10 o'clock, I heard a car pull into the driveway. Through the window, I saw Daniel's old sedan. He got out first, his face set in hard lines. Then Vanessa emerged from the passenger side, wearing a simple sundress, her hair pulled back, looking young and vulnerable. The perfect wronged bride. I opened the door before they could knock. Daniel, I said. Vanessa, please come in. Daniel walked past me without a word. Vanessa followed, giving me a small, sad smile. Mrs. Thornton, she said softly. I hope we can talk about what happened. That's why you're here, I said. We sat in the living room, me in my usual armchair, Daniel and Vanessa together on the couch. The physical distance felt symbolic. They were a unit now, and I was on the outside. Daniel spoke first. Okay, Mom. Explain. Why did you do that last night? I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment where I either saved my son or lost him completely. Because I overheard something, I said. Something that made me realize I was making a terrible mistake. Vanessa's face remained perfectly composed, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Fear, maybe. Or calculation. What did you overhear? Daniel asked. His voice was still cold, but there was curiosity there too. I pulled out my phone. My hands were steady now. I'd been dreading this moment all night. But now that it was here, I felt strangely calm. The truth was on my side. Before my speech, I went to the bridal suite to get my purse, I said. The door was closed, but I could hear voices inside. Your voices, Vanessa. You and your bridesmaids. Vanessa's face went pale, but she recovered quickly. Mrs. Thornton, I don't understand. Let me finish, I said firmly. I heard what you said about me. About Daniel. About your plans. Mom, what are you talking about? Daniel looked between us, confused. Instead of answering, I opened the recording app on my phone. I recorded it, I said. 8.5 minutes of conversation. Would you like to hear it? This is insane, Vanessa said, but her voice had lost its sweetness. There was an edge to it now. You were spying on me. I was standing outside a door you left open, I said, and I'm very glad I was. Daniel, you're not going to listen to this, are you? Vanessa turned to her husband, her eyes wide and pleading. Your mother is clearly trying to come between us. This is exactly what I was afraid of. She can't stand that you have a wife now, that I'm your priority. Mom? Daniel looked at me uncertainly. Just listen, I said. I pressed play. Vanessa's voice filled the room, tinny through the phone speaker but perfectly clear. Margaret's probably already writing the check right now. Did you see how desperate she was to pay for everything? The old wallet can't wait to open up for us. Daniel's face went blank. He stared at the phone like he couldn't quite process what he was hearing. Daniel, that's not. Vanessa started, but I held up my hand. What? I said. There's more. The recording continued. Brianna's voice. So what's the plan? Vanessa, I don't have to convince Daniel of anything. He's so desperate to make me happy, he'll do whatever I suggest. I watched Daniel's face as he listened. The color had drained from his cheeks. His hands were gripping the edge of the couch cushion so hard his knuckles were white. Daniel, please, let me explain. Vanessa reached for his arm, but he jerked away from her. Don't, he said quietly. Just don't. The recording kept playing. Vanessa talking about getting $10 million up front. Vanessa discussing putting me in a nursing home. Vanessa calling Daniel's teaching career unexciting, their sex life mediocre. I love what he can give me. He's nice enough, I guess. Not exactly exciting, but manageable. Daniel stood up abruptly. He walked to the window, his back to both of us. His shoulders were shaking. I stopped the recording. The silence in the room was deafening. Daniel, Vanessa said, her voice breaking. She was crying now, perfect tears streaming down her perfect face. Please let me explain. It wasn't, I didn't mean those things, I was drunk and showing off for my friends. You know how bridesmaids can be, all competitive and… How much of it was true? Daniel asked. His voice was flat, emotionless. He still wasn't looking at either of us. None of it, I was being stupid and… How much, Vanessa? She hesitated, and in that hesitation, I saw Daniel's shoulders slump even further. Were you ever going to tell me about the financial research? I asked quietly. About looking into Thornton properties, my net worth, whether there were other family members who might contest my will? Vanessa's eyes darted to me, then back to Daniel. I just wanted to understand your family better. Is that so wrong? You researched inheritance law? I said. You called Emma not a blood threat to your claim. Daniel, please, did you love me? Daniel asked. He finally turned around, and the look on his face broke my heart. He looked like a lost little boy. At any point, did you actually love me? Vanessa opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. She was still crying. But I could see her mind working, trying to figure out which answer would hurt least, which lie would be most believable. The fact that she had to calculate her response told us everything we needed to know. She started. I care about you, Daniel, I do. And I thought maybe love would grow. Get out, Daniel said. What? Get out of my mother's house, now? Daniel, we're married. We just got married yesterday, you can't? Jeet. Oat, Daniel roared, and both Vanessa and I jumped. I'd never heard my son yell like that. Never seen that kind of rage on his gentle face. Vanessa scrambled to her feet. She looked at me, her expression transforming from tears to pure hatred. This is your fault, she hissed. You couldn't stand to see him happy. You had to ruin everything. I didn't ruin anything, I said calmly. You did that all by yourself. You're a bitter old woman who… I said get out, Daniel said. His voice was quieter now but somehow more frightening. Leave now, before I play that recording for your parents, for your friends, for everyone who was at our wedding. Vanessa grabbed her purse, her hands shaking. She looked at Daniel one more time, maybe hoping he'd change his mind, but his face was stone. She practically ran out of the house. A moment later, we heard her car start and speed away. Daniel and I stood there in silence. I didn't know what to say, how to comfort him. He'd just had his heart broken in the worst possible way. Finally, he sat down heavily on the couch and put his head in his hands. I whispered, Don't. His voice was muffled. Don't apologize, you were trying to protect me. I should have told you sooner. Before the wedding. I should have. Would I have believed you? He looked up at me, his eyes red. If you told me yesterday morning that Vanessa was using me, would I have listened? Or would I have thought you were just being an overprotective mother who didn't approve of my choice? I thought about that. Honestly, I didn't know. I loved her, Mom, Daniel said, and his voice cracked. Or I thought I did. I thought she was the one. I thought I'd finally found someone who wanted to build a life with me. I sat down next to him and took his hand. I know, baby. I know. 2 years. We were together for 2 years, and it was all a lie. Every date, every conversation, every time she said she loved me, it was all just, what? A con? A long game to get to your money? I'm so sorry, Daniel. The worst part is that you were right, he said bitterly. You and Emma, you both had doubts, and I dismissed them. I thought you were being difficult, that you didn't want to share me. God, I'm such an idiot. You're not an idiot. You're trusting. That's not a flaw. It is when it makes you blind. He pulled his hand away and stood up, pacing. I married her, Mom. We're legally married. I signed papers. We have a marriage certificate. How did I not see what she was? Because she was very good at hiding it, I said. This wasn't your fault, Daniel, wasn't it? I'm 38 years old, not some naive kid. I should have seen the signs. The way she was always interested when you talked about your business, but glazed over when I talked about my students. The way she pushed for the expensive wedding, the designer dress, the elaborate reception, how she never wanted to split costs, always assuming you'd cover it. He was right. The signs had been there, but love made people blind, and Daniel had wanted so badly to believe he'd found his person. What do I do now? He asked, turning to face me. Do I annul the marriage? Get divorced? How do I even begin to untangle this mess? First you breathe, I said. Then we call my attorney, we'll figure out the legal aspects. But Daniel, I need to tell you something else. He looked at me warily. What? I need to check your bank accounts, your finances. Why? I took a deep breath. Because Vanessa mentioned once we have access to the family finances. I'm worried she might have already gotten into your accounts. Did you give her access to anything? Credit cards, checking account, savings. Daniel's face went even paler. We opened a joint checking account last month, for wedding expenses and dough, and to start combining our finances. Oh God. Do you have your phone? Check your banking app. With shaking hands, Daniel pulled out his phone and opened his bank's app. I watched his face as he scrolled through recent transactions. No, he whispered. No. How bad is it? She transferred $40,000 out of our joint account 3 days ago. Into an account I don't recognize. He kept scrolling. And another $20,000 2 weeks ago, and $15,000 before that. $75,000, I said quietly. I didn't even notice. I thought she was paying wedding vendors, and I wasn't checking because I trusted her to handle it. She said she was better with money stuff than I was. He laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. Better with money. She stole from me and I didn't even notice? We need to call the bank right now, I said. Report the fraud, and we need to freeze any other accounts she might have access to. Daniel nodded numbly. He was in shock, I realized. Too many revelations in too short a time. His marriage was a lie. His wife was a con artist. She'd stolen from him. And she'd planned to steal from me too, not just money, but my dignity, my independence, maybe even my life. Because make no mistake, putting someone in a nursing home when they didn't need it, taking away their autonomy and freedom, that was a kind of death. I stood and put my arms around my son. He was taller than me now, had been since he was 16, but in that moment he seemed small and broken. We'll fix this, I said into his shoulder. I promise you, Daniel. We'll fix all of it. He held on to me and cried like he hadn't since he was a little boy. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, bank statements, and difficult conversations. My attorney, Richard Chen, Patty's nephew and one of the best family lawyers in the state, took Daniel's case personally. When I played him the recording and showed him the bank statements, his face went hard. This is fraud, he said flatly. Clear, cut financial fraud. We can not only get Daniel's money back, but we can pursue criminal charges if he wants to. We were sitting in Richard's office downtown. All the evidence spread out on his conference table. Daniel sat slumped in his chair, looking like he hadn't slept in days. He hadn't, as far as I knew. He'd been staying in his old room at my house since the confrontation, unable to face his apartment where he'd lived with Vanessa. I just want it over with, Daniel said quietly. Can we get an annulment? Richard shook his head. Annulment is tricky. In this state, you'd need to prove fraud that goes to the essence of the marriage, like if she was already married, or lied about being able to have children. What we have here is fraud in the inducement, which is grounds for divorce, but not annulment. So we're really married, Daniel said bitterly. Legally? In the eyes of the state, I'm married to a woman who was planning to rob my mother and put her in a nursing home. For now, yes. But we can file for divorce immediately on grounds of fraud. With this evidence, it should be fast. No waiting period, no mediation. And we'll make sure she doesn't get a penny in the settlement. What about the money she already took? I asked. We'll pursue it. The transfers were from a joint account, which complicates things, but we can argue she made them under false pretenses. Plus, if Daniel files a police report for fraud— No police, Daniel said suddenly. I don't want this to become a public spectacle. I just want my money back and I want her gone. Richard and I exchanged looks. I understood Daniel's reluctance. He was a private person, a teacher at a respected school. Having his failed marriage and his wife's fraud become public knowledge would be humiliating. But Vanessa needed to face consequences. Daniel, I said gently, if we don't pursue this legally, she'll do it to someone else. Another man, another family. She's done this before. Probably more than once. We have proof. We can stop her. I know, Daniel said. I know, you're right. I can't, Mom. Not right now. Maybe later. But right now I just need her out of my life. Richard made some notes. Okay. We'll focus on the divorce and financial recovery. But Daniel, I'm going to strongly recommend you keep all this evidence. The recording, the bank statements, everything. If she tries to fight the divorce or make claims against your mother's estate, we'll need it. She won't get anything from my estate, I said firmly. I'm having everything restructured anyway. That was the other thing I'd been working on. I'd met with my financial advisor, Patricia Wong, and my accountant to completely overhaul my estate planning. No more simple wills leaving everything to Daniel. Now there would be trusts, conditions, protections. Emma would be taken care of through an educational trust that would cover college, graduate school, and give her a living stipend until she was 30. After that, she'd get full access to her portion, about $15 million, carefully invested and managed. Daniel would also have a trust, but with more restrictions now. Income for life, absolutely. He'd never have to worry about money, but no lump sums that a future partner could manipulate him into handing over. I hated that I had to think this way, had to protect my son from his own generous heart, but Vanessa had taught me a hard lesson. The bulk of my estate, the real estate empire, the commercial properties, all of it would go into a family foundation. Emma and Daniel would both serve on the board. They'd have good salaries, decision-making power, and the satisfaction of doing something meaningful with the money. It wasn't the gift I'd originally planned, but it was smarter, safer, and maybe, in the end, more meaningful. How is Vanessa responding to all this? Richard asked. Daniel's jaw tightened. She's been calling and texting constantly, apologizing, begging for another chance, claiming she didn't mean any of it. And I blocked her number. She started calling from other numbers, so I changed mine. Then she showed up at the school. My head snapped up. She what? 3 days ago, she came to my classroom during lunch period, started crying, making a scene, saying I was abandoning her. That marriage meant working through problems. He rubbed his face tiredly. I had to have security escort her out. The principal asked me what was going on. I told him we were getting divorced and she was unstable. Now there's a no trespass order against her at the school. Jesus, Richard muttered. She's not making this easy. She sent another email this morning, Daniel continued. Said she'd talked to a lawyer, and that she's entitled to half of everything I got during the marriage, including any gifts from my mother. I felt my blood pressure spike. She has some nerve, which is why we need to move fast, Richard interrupted. If she's lawyered up, she's going to fight. We need to file first, control the narrative, and use that recording to show fraud. The judge needs to hear it before her attorney can spin some story about a misunderstanding. Do it, Daniel said. File whatever you need to file. I don't care anymore. I just want this over. After the meeting, Daniel and I went to lunch at a quiet cafe near my house. He picked at his food, barely eating. He'd lost weight. I could see it in his face, the hollow look around his eyes. You need to eat, I said gently. I'm not hungry. Daniel, Mom, please. I know you're worried, but I can't do the normal things right now. Eating, sleeping, pretending everything's okay. Nothing's okay. I set down my fork. You're right. Nothing is okay. You're going through something horrible. But you're going to get through it, and I'm going to help you. I don't know how to get through this, he said, his voice breaking. I thought I knew what my life was. I was married. I had a partner. We were going to buy a house, maybe have kids someday. I had a plan, and now that's all gone, and I don't know who I am without it. You're Daniel Thornton? I said firmly. You're a wonderful teacher who changes kids' lives every day. You're a loving son and uncle. You're a good man with a good heart. That hasn't changed. My good heart got me here, he said bitterly. My good heart made me trust someone who was using me from day one. Your good heart is not the problem. Her dishonesty is the problem. We sat in silence for a moment. Around us, the cafe bustled with lunch crowds, people laughing, talking, going about their normal lives. I envied them their normalcy. Mom, Daniel said quietly. Can I ask you something? Anything? That $20 million, were you really going to give it to us? Yes. Why? I thought about how to answer. Because I wanted to give you security, freedom, the ability to do whatever made you happy without worrying about money. But I already have that, Daniel said. I have a job I love. I have enough money for my needs. I don't need millions of dollars to be happy. I know that now, I admitted. But at the time I thought it was the best gift I could give you. The culmination of everything I'd built. Did you think I needed it? That I wasn't successful enough on my own? His question caught me off guard. No, of course not. I'm so proud of you, Daniel. You chose a career that matters, that helps people. That's more important than any business empire. Then why the money? I struggled to find the right words. I think I was trying to prove something. To myself, maybe. That I'd been a good mother despite all the time I spent building my business when you were young. That I could provide for you in a way my parents never provided for me. You were a good mother? Daniel said. You worked hard to give us opportunities. You were there for the important stuff. I never doubted that you loved me. Tears stung my eyes. Thank you for saying that. I mean it. And Mom? I don't need $20 million. I never did. I just needed you to see me for who I am. Not who you thought I should be. We finished lunch in a more comfortable silence. On the drive home, Daniel seemed a little lighter, like getting that off his chest had helped somehow. When we got back to my house, Emma was waiting on the porch. She'd been staying with her friend for most of the past 2 weeks, giving Daniel space to grieve and heal without worrying about her seeing him fall apart. Uncle Daniel, she called out, running down the steps. She threw her arms around him, and I saw his shoulders relax a little. Emma had always been able to reach him in ways I couldn't. Hey kiddo, he said into her hair. How are you doing? Really, I'm surviving. That's a start. Emma pulled back and studied his face. You look terrible, though. Have you been sleeping? Not much? Come on. Emma took his hand and led him toward the house. Grandma bought your favorite ice cream, that fancy coffee one from the place downtown. We're going to eat ice cream and watch stupid movies and not talk about Vanessa at all. Okay? Daniel managed a small smile. Okay, I watched them go inside, these two people I loved more than anything. Emma wise beyond her years. Daniel wounded but not broken. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mrs. Thornton, this is Vanessa. Please. I need to talk to you. I know you hate me, but I can explain everything. Daniel won't answer my calls. Please, just 5 minutes of your time. I stared at that message for a long moment. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to block this number like Daniel had blocked all the others. But another part of me, the part that had built a business empire by knowing my adversaries, wanted to hear what she had to say. Not because I thought she deserved a hearing, but because I needed to understand what kind of person could do what she'd done. How someone could plan, methodically and cold-bloodedly, to manipulate and use another human being. I typed back, fine. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., the Starbucks on Maple Street. Just you and me? Her response came immediately. Thank you. Thank you so much. I promise you won't regret this. I already regretted it. But I needed this conversation. For my own peace of mind, and maybe for Daniel's too. I needed to look Vanessa Hart in the eye and understand exactly what she'd been willing to do to my family. I didn't tell Daniel about meeting with Vanessa. He would have tried to stop me or insisted on coming along, and I needed to do this alone. I did tell Emma, though, and made her promise to call me in 30 minutes as an excuse to leave if things got uncomfortable. Are you sure this is a good idea, Grandma? Emma asked as I was getting ready to leave. Probably not, I admitted, but I need to do it anyway. Why? I thought about that. Because I need to understand how someone could plan something like this. How she could look Daniel in the eye every day and lie to him. She's a sociopath? Emma said flatly. That's how. She doesn't feel empathy like normal people. Maybe. But I need to hear it from her. The Starbucks was crowded with the after-lunch crowd. Students with laptops, business people having meetings, mothers with strollers. I got there early and chose a table in the back corner where we'd have some privacy. Vanessa arrived exactly at 2 o'clock. She looked different than she had at the wedding. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, no makeup, wearing jeans and a plain sweater. She looked younger, more vulnerable. Calculated, I realized. She was trying to appear harmless, apologetic. Mrs. Thornton, she said as she approached the table. Thank you so much for meeting with me. Sit down, Vanessa. She sat, folding her hands on the table. I know you must hate me. I don't hate you, I interrupted. I don't feel anything for you except a desire to understand what you were thinking. I wasn't thinking. That's the problem. I was drunk and stupid and showing off for my friends. Don't lie to me. My voice was sharp. We're past that point. You researched my business. You looked into inheritance law. You planned this carefully. The recording makes that very clear. Vanessa's carefully constructed mask slipped a little. Okay, she said quietly. You're right. I did plan it. But not because I'm some evil person. I was desperate. Desperate. Do you know what it's like to be 30 years old with no real job skills and no prospects? Her voice took on an edge. I tried the influencer thing. I really did. But unless you're in the top 1%, there's no money in it. I was living on credit cards, about to lose my apartment. My parents couldn't help. They're retired on a fixed income. I had no savings, no retirement account. Nothing. So you decided to con my son. I decided to marry someone who could provide stability, she corrected. Is that really so different from what women have done throughout history, marrying for security instead of love? I stared at her, genuinely stunned by her logic. Yes, Vanessa. It's very different. Because those women didn't pretend to love their husbands while planning to put their mothers-in-law in nursing homes and steal their money. She had the grace to look ashamed at that. The nursing home thing, that was just talk. I was exaggerating, trying to sound tough in front of my friends. I wouldn't have actually done that. And the rest? Calling me the old wallet. Calling Daniel mediocre, saying you could live with bad sex for $60 million. She faltered. I was being cruel. I'm not proud of it. That's not an answer. Vanessa was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. When she looked up, there were real tears in her eyes. But I couldn't tell if they were genuine or just another performance. You want the truth, she asked. Fine. I did research your family. I did plan to position myself to benefit from your wealth. But I didn't plan to fall for Daniel. You just said you were marrying him for security, not love. I said I decided to marry him for that reason. But feelings are more complicated than decisions. She leaned forward. Daniel is a good man, maybe the best man I've ever met. And yes, at first I saw him as a means to an end. But over time, I started to actually care about him, to respect him, to want to make him happy. Just not enough to tell him the truth about why you were with him. Because I was afraid? The tears were falling now. I was afraid that if I told him I'd initially been interested in his family's money, he'd leave me. And by then, I didn't want him to leave. I wanted to make it work. I wanted to be the person he thought I was. But you weren't. No, she admitted. I wasn't. And that conversation you recorded, that was me trying to hold on to my old self, my old cynicism. Because I was terrified of getting married. Terrified that I'd ruin it somehow. So I put on my armor and talked tough and pretended I was still in control. I studied her face, trying to determine if any of this was real. What about the money you stole from Daniel's account? $75,000. Was that also just talk? Her face went red. I didn't steal it. That was our joint account? I had every right? To do what? Where did that money go? She looked away. I was paying off debts, credit cards, mostly. I was trying to start our marriage with a clean slate. Without telling Daniel. He knew I had some debt. He just didn't know how much. How much? Vanessa. $130,000, she whispered. From years of trying to maintain the influencer lifestyle, designer clothes, expensive restaurants, trips to places I couldn't afford. I was drowning in it. So you saw Daniel and my family's money as a life raft. Yes, she met my eyes. Yes, I did, and I'm not proud of it. But Mrs. Thornton, I was desperate. Do you know what that feels like? To watch your life falling apart and see no way out. Actually, yes, I said quietly. I was 20, 5 years old with a toddler and $17 in my checking account when my husband died. I know exactly what desperation feels like. Then you understand. I understand that desperation makes you do things you wouldn't normally do. But I worked my way out. I didn't con someone into saving me. I saved myself. Not everyone is as strong as you, Vanessa said. Not everyone has that kind of determination. And not everyone lies to the person who loves them. She flinched. I know I hurt Daniel. I know I probably destroyed any chance of him ever trusting anyone again. And I'm sorry. I'm genuinely sorry for that. Are you sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught? Both, she said honestly. I'm sorry I approached the relationship dishonestly. But I'm also sorry that the recording exists, yes. Because I think if you hadn't overheard that conversation, Daniel and I might have actually made it work. I might have become the person he needed me to be. Or you might have put me in a nursing home and stolen everything I built. I wouldn't have. You were already stealing from Daniel. You'd taken $75,000 without his knowledge. What's to say you wouldn't have kept going? Vanessa had no answer for that. My phone buzzed. Emma's call right on time. But I ignored it. I wasn't done yet. What do you want from me, Vanessa? Why did you ask for this meeting? I want you to talk to Daniel, she said. I want you to tell him that I'm sorry. That I made mistakes but that I did care about him. That I wasn't completely faking it. Why would I do that? Because he's your son and he's hurting. And maybe knowing that some of it was real will help him heal. I almost laughed. You want me to help you? After everything you did, I'm asking you to help Daniel. To help him not hate himself for falling for me. To let him know that I did feel something real for him, even if it started as a con. He doesn't hate himself. He's hurt and angry. But he'll recover. Will he? Or will this break something in him? Make him unable to trust anyone ever again? Vanessa leaned forward. Mrs. Thornton, I know you don't owe me anything. But you love your son? And I'm telling you, if he thinks our entire relationship was a lie, if he thinks he meant nothing to me, that's going to damage him in ways that will last forever. I wanted to dismiss her words as manipulation. But there was something in what she said that resonated. I'd seen the look in Daniel's eyes, the self-doubt, the questioning of his own judgment. What if she was right? What if believing the whole thing was fake made it worse? Did you love him? I asked directly. Even a little. Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, she said finally. I don't know if what I felt was love, or just comfort, safety. The feeling of being taken care of. But I did care about him. I did want him to be happy. I just also wanted to be secure, and I couldn't separate those two wants. That's not love, Vanessa. That's dependency, maybe. But it's the closest I've ever come. My phone buzzed again. Emma, probably worried. I needed to end this. I'm not going to help you, I said, standing up. I'm not going to tell Daniel anything except what I already know. That you used him, planned to use me, and got caught. If you want him to know you had real feelings, you should have thought about that before you called him mediocre and talked about putting me in a home. Or Mrs. Thornton, please. The divorce papers will be filed this week. Richard will be in touch about the money you took. If you fight any of it, we'll use the recording in court. If you try to contact Daniel again, we'll file for a restraining order. Are we clear? Vanessa's face hardened. The vulnerable, tearful woman disappeared, and I saw a flash of the person from the recording. Crystal clear, she said coldly. Though I hope you realize you've just destroyed your son's chance at happiness. He'll never trust anyone again. Never let anyone close. He'll grow old and alone because you couldn't let go of your money. This has nothing to do with money, I said firmly. This has everything to do with protecting my son from someone who saw him as a meal ticket. Whatever helps you sleep at night. Vanessa stood up, grabbing her purse. But Mrs. Thornton, you think you're protecting Daniel, but all you're doing is teaching him that love isn't real, that everyone has an agenda, that he can't trust his own heart. That's a hell of a lesson to teach your child. She walked out before I could respond. I sat back down, my hands shaking. Around me, the coffee shop continued its normal rhythm. People chatting, laptops clicking, the espresso machine hissing. But I felt like I'd just been through a battle. Was she right? Was I teaching Daniel the wrong lesson? No. I'd protected him from a con artist. That was what mothers did. They protected their children, even when their children didn't want to be protected. But Vanessa's words kept echoing in my mind. He'll never trust anyone again. I pulled out my phone and called Emma back. Grandma! Are you okay? I called twice. I'm fine, sweetheart. The meeting's over. I'm heading home. What happened? What did she say? I'll tell you when I get there. Is Daniel home? Yeah, he's watching TV in the living room. He seems better today, actually. We made cookies earlier and he ate like 3 of them. Good, that's good. I started walking to my car. Emma, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think I'm being too protective? Of Daniel? There was a pause. I think you're being a grandma who loves her family. Why? Vanessa said. She said I'm teaching Daniel not to trust anyone. That he'll be alone forever because of this. Grandma, Vanessa is a liar trying to manipulate you. Don't listen to her. But what if she's right? What if he never recovers from this? Then we'll help him recover, Emma said firmly. You, me, Aunt Patty, Richard. Everyone who actually loves him. Not the woman who used him. Okay? I felt tears prick my eyes. When did you get so wise? I learned from the best. I could hear the smile in her voice. Come home, Grandma. We saved you some cookies. I drove home with Vanessa's words still rattling around in my head. But Emma was right. We would help Daniel heal. As a family. Without the woman who'd nearly destroyed him. 6 months later, I stood in the community center downtown, watching as the ribbon-cutting ceremony began for the newest addition to the Thornton Family Foundation's affordable housing project. 20 units of beautiful, dignified apartments for low-income families, built with some of that $20 million I'd almost given away. Ladies and gentlemen, the mayor was saying, please join me in thanking the Thornton Family Foundation for their incredible generosity and vision. Next to me, Emma was beaming, her phone out to capture the moment for the foundation's social media accounts. She'd become surprisingly good at that, ironic, considering where Vanessa's influencer aspirations had led. But Emma used social media to highlight the families we were helping, the communities we were building. It was authentic in a way Vanessa's carefully curated posts had never been. On my other side stood Daniel. He looked better, healthier than he had in months. The dark circles under his eyes were gone. He'd gained back the weight he'd lost. And while I couldn't say he was completely healed, he was healing. Slowly but surely. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago. Vanessa hadn't fought it. Richard's threat to use the recording in court had been enough to make her sign without contest. She'd agreed to pay back the $75,000 in installments, though I doubted we'd ever see most of it. Daniel didn't care about the money anymore. He just wanted it over. As for criminal charges, Daniel had ultimately decided not to pursue them. I just want to move forward, he'd said. Pressing charges means more court dates, more time thinking about her, more energy spent on something I need to let go of. I'd respected his decision, even though part of me wanted to see Vanessa face consequences. But maybe the consequence was simply being Vanessa, a woman in her 30s with massive debt, no real career, and a reputation that would follow her if anyone bothered to Google her name. The ribbon was cut. Applause filled the room. Emma squeezed my hand. Grandma, this is amazing, she said. Can you believe we did this? You did a lot of it, I said. You're the one who found this property, who worked with the architects on the designs. But it was your money, your vision, our vision now, I corrected. That's what a family foundation means. Daniel smiled at us. Mom, I think they want you to say a few words. I hadn't prepared a speech. I'd thought the mayor would handle all the talking. But people were looking at me expectantly, so I walked to the microphone. Thank you all for being here, I began. 6 months ago, I was planning to give a very different kind of gift, a personal one. But sometimes life redirects us toward where we're really meant to be. I looked at Daniel and Emma, standing together, supporting each other. These apartments represent more than just housing. They represent dignity, security, the chance for families to build something stable. When I was 25 years old with a small child and almost no money, stable housing changed my life. It gave me a foundation to build on, literally and figuratively. I paused, gathering my thoughts. My son Daniel teaches history. He always tells his students that history isn't just about dates and events. It's about people making choices at crossroads. Well, 6 months ago, I stood at a crossroads. And I chose to build something lasting instead of something easy, something that would help many families instead of just one. The crowd applauded. I caught sight of Patty in the front row, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. This is just the beginning, I continued. The Thornton Family Foundation has plans for 3 more projects like this one. We're also establishing scholarship programs for first-generation college students and grants for small business owners in underserved communities. Because the best gift you can give isn't money, it's opportunity. More applause. I stepped back from the microphone, suddenly feeling emotional. Emma rushed over and hugged me. That was perfect. Grandma. After the ceremony, we did a tour of the apartments. They were beautiful, modern but warm, with good appliances and plenty of natural light. I watched the faces of the families who would be moving in, saw their relief and gratitude, and felt something shift inside me. This was better than writing a check. This was legacy. Ms. Thornton. A young woman approached me, a toddler on her hip. I just wanted to thank you. My daughter and I have been in a shelter for 8 months. Getting one of these apartments. It's going to change our lives. I thought about myself at 25, desperate and scared. What's your name? Angela. And this is Sophie. Sophie was maybe 2 years old, with big brown eyes and curly hair. She reminded me of Emma at that age, before the cancer took Caroline from us. Angela, I'm going to make sure you have everything you need, I said. Not just housing. If you need help with childcare so you can work or go to school, if you need job training, anything, the foundation has resources. Will you let us help? Angela's eyes filled with tears. Yes, thank you. I'm going to make something of myself. For Sophie. I promise. I know you will, I said. I did it. You can too. As we were leaving the community center, Daniel pulled me aside. Mom, can we talk? Of course. We found a quiet corner away from the crowd. What's on your mind? I've been thinking a lot lately, Daniel said. About everything that happened. About Vanessa, about the money. About what you said at the ribbon cutting. And you were right to tear up that check. He smiled slightly. I was so angry at you that night. I thought you were trying to control my life, punish me for my choice. But you were protecting me from making a terrible mistake? I was protecting you from Vanessa, I corrected. Not from love. There's a difference? I know. And I want you to know that I'm not giving up on love. On finding someone real. He took a breath. Actually, I've been seeing someone. Nothing serious yet, just coffee dates and long conversations. But I wanted you to know. My heart lifted. Oh, Daniel. That's wonderful. Who is she? Her name is Rachel. She's a librarian at the school. We've worked together for years. But I never really noticed her until recently. She's kind and smart and she makes me laugh. And she has no idea how much money you have, which is oddly refreshing. I laughed. I'd love to meet her sometime. When you're ready, soon, he promised. I'm taking it slow this time, really getting to know her. Making sure, he trailed off. Making sure she wants you for you, I finished. Yeah, that's smart, I'm proud of you. We stood there for a moment, and I realized how far we'd both come. 6 months ago, Daniel was heartbroken and I was terrified I'd destroyed his life. Now he was healing, dating, moving forward. Mom, Daniel said quietly. I never thanked you properly, for saving me. I was too angry and hurt at first, but now I understand. If you hadn't overheard that conversation, if you hadn't recorded it, I would have given Vanessa everything. And when she left, because eventually she would have left, I would have been completely destroyed. Financially and emotionally, you would have survived, I said. You're stronger than you think? Maybe. But I'm glad I didn't have to find out. He hugged me tight. Thank you for being the kind of mother who tears up $20 million checks to protect her son. I held him close, this boy who had grown into such a good man, despite my fears that I'd failed him. Thank you for being the kind of son who forgives his mother for ruining his wedding reception, I said. He laughed. Well, it was a pretty dramatic exit. People are still talking about it. Emma found us a few minutes later. There you two are! Aunt Patty wants to take us all to dinner to celebrate. She says it's her treat. Patty's treating? I raised an eyebrow. She must be feeling generous. She says you've given away enough money for one day, Emma said with a grin. Come on. I'm starving. We went to Patty's favorite Italian restaurant, the 4 of us, me, Daniel, Emma, and Patty. We ordered too much food and laughed too loud and talked about future foundation projects and Daniel's new girlfriend and Emma's college applications. It was perfect. Simple and perfect. Halfway through dinner, my phone buzzed with an email notification. I almost ignored it, but something made me check. It was from an address I didn't recognize with the subject line. I'm sorry, I opened it. Mrs. Thornton, this is Vanessa. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I wanted you to know that I'm getting help. Therapy, financial counseling. Working on being honest about my issues instead of looking for someone to save me. I'm also paying back what I owe Daniel, even though it will take years. I don't expect forgiveness from you or him, but I wanted you to know that what you did, stopping me, was the right thing. I was on a bad path, and you forced me to face it. So thank you, I guess. for saving me from myself. Even though that wasn't your intention, I hope Daniel is doing well. He deserves someone who loves him the right way. V. I stared at that email for a long moment. Everything okay? Grandma? Emma asked. Yeah, I said, putting my phone away. Everything's fine. I didn't know if Vanessa was sincere. Maybe she was, maybe she wasn't. But it didn't matter anymore. She was no longer our problem. She was her own problem to solve. Margaret. Patty was looking at me with concern. You sure you're okay? Better than okay, I said honestly. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I was. Sitting with my family, planning for the future, building something meaningful with the wealth I'd accumulated. Not hoarding it. Not giving it away recklessly, but using it purposefully. That night, after we'd all gone home and the house was quiet, I sat in my office looking at the framed photo on my desk. It was from the ribbon-cutting ceremony, me, Daniel, and Emma, our arms around each other, all of us smiling. I thought about that check I'd torn up 6 months ago. $20 million. Reduced to confetti. Best money I never spent. My empire was still intact. My family was stronger than ever. And those $20 million, they were building homes, funding scholarships, creating opportunities for people who needed them. I'd almost given away my fortune to someone who saw me as nothing more than an ATM. Instead, I'd invested it in something that would last long after I was gone. Legacy wasn't about how much money you left behind. It was about what you built with it while you were here. I pulled out my journal, something my therapist had suggested I start keeping, and began to write. Today we opened the first Thornton Family Foundation housing complex. 20 families will have safe, affordable homes because I chose purpose over easy generosity. Daniel is healing. Emma is thriving. And I've learned that the best way to show love isn't by writing checks. It's by being present, being wise, and being willing to make hard choices when necessary. I was ready to gift $20 million at my son's wedding. Instead, I tore up that check and saved 3 lives, his, mine, and the life we're building together as a family. Best decision I ever made. I closed the journal and turned off the light. Tomorrow there would be more work to do, more families to help, more apartments to build, more scholarships to fund. But tonight, I could rest knowing that I'd chosen wisely. That my wealth would be used for good. That my family was intact and thriving. That at 68 years old, I'd learned what I should have known all along. The greatest gift you can give isn't money. It's wisdom, protection, and unconditional love that's strong enough to make the hard choices. Even if those choices look like tearing up a $20 million check in front of 200 people. Especially then.